It really is very, very special. Well, it's that time, everyone. I hope that you will leave us with this lovely, calm sense of the African bush and beautiful, iconic animals like the elephants. And it's time to say goodbye. So thank you so much for your questions and your comments. It was a lovely drive. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye for now.
Hello everyone and welcome down to Penguin Beach. We have a windy but wonderful day down here. My name is Jax, I'm going to be your naturalist. Jason is behind the camera and we are down in the left wing today watching what the penguins are getting up to with high tide. So let's go have a look at the ocean, let's go have a look at those penguins. So it is a very warm day down here despite the wind. And today we have what we call bergwind conditions. So you think that it's winter, it would be cold, but it is in fact quite warm because the wind is blowing from the northwest or the northeast. I believe it's northeast actually. And when you have those conditions, then what happens is we have this warm wind that comes in just before the storm. And down here in the left wing today, we've got some African penguins, but we also have a little egret sitting on the rocks. Harriet, it makes me so happy that Penguin Beach is your Saturday spoil. I'm glad that that's how you choose to spend your weekend at the ocean here with us. And today is the 11th of June, and today is actually the birthday of Jacques Cousteau. And I thought yesterday was the 11th of June, but Sammy, our director, very quickly told me that it was the 10th. So we were talking about it before the show, and I think if you don't work a normal sort of weekday, you'd never really know what day of the week it is. So unless it's a birthday, an environmental day, or the day I have to take out my rubbish, I tend to not know if it's a Saturday or a Tuesday or what the date is. But today I want to talk a bit about Jacques Cousteau and about wildlife filming. And we also found a lobster earlier. So the crazy eights were sitting by the lobster, but they subsequently moved. So later on, I think towards really right at the end of the show, the last 10 minutes, we're going to move towards our lobster friend and have a good look at him. He is not in the land of the living anymore. He is deceased, but it's a really good skeleton of a lobster, and I'd love us to go and have a closer look at it later on. This little egret is tentatively getting its feet wet, hopping into the water. So we'll just see what this egret has planned, if it's going to do some fishing. It's in very shallow water. And it's unlikely to have too many fish where it is currently. And here we get two species of egret that we see. So we get the little egret, and very occasionally we also have the cattle egret. Kimberly, so I believe that's what Byron says whenever he sees the little egret. It does. I think it's so beautiful because the rest of the body is fairly dull looking, and then you've got these bright yellow feet, which are very pretty. And as soon as I got off the show yesterday, I was very excited to tell Byron what happened to Flippy and Frodo, and that they've dug themselves a hole into the Shire where they can hide. Ooh, big fight in the water. We'll see if these penguins will continue to fight. No, it looks like they've gone their separate ways. And we had an unanswered question yesterday about seals and seal diet that we also need to talk about.
My name's Liam Henderson. I'm a guide at the Homestead Lodge on Nambiti Private Game Reserve in KwaZulu-Natal. I think Safari Guide of the Year is a great competition to be a part of. I'm somewhat nervous for the tracking part of the competition, as being in KZN now, haven't been exposed to the low-felt animals and tracks and signs that are so apparent up there.
My name is Nico Brits. I am originally from Cape Town. I worked in the Eastern Cape for about 9 years before I started working at Bushwise Field Guides in the Lowveld, close to Makalali Private Game Reserve. So I'm hoping that by doing this could inspire the younger or newer guides coming into the industry to do the same.
So yesterday our unanswered question was asking if the diet changes for our Cape Fur seals from west to east, and I remember so clearly seeing this pie chart, and luckily I was able to find it where they actually documented seal diets all the way from Walvis Bay and Lüderitz in Namibia to Port Elizabeth. And it was super interesting because I actually thought that they would eat a lot more squid towards Port Elizabeth, but I was wrong. So the closest sort of area that we have here would be False Bay in this pie chart, and 36% of what they were eating was octopus and squid, which was very interesting, compared to Mossel Bay and to Port Elizabeth, where it was only 18%. So they actually eat a lot more squid in this area, which I found super interesting. But predominantly the diet, particularly on the west coast, is fish. And then in this area, in False Bay, they picked up that fish was only about 16% of their diet, which is very small. I'd say going into the Overberg, I think it must be a little bit larger. And then in Port Elizabeth, it was estimated to be about 42% of their diet is schooling fish. But something else that really features is sharks and rays. So seals love to eat smaller shark species. And in this area, it was about 30%. So that's almost a third of their diet is shark, small sharks. And then it was round about the same in Mossel Bay. So most seals have a very generalist diet. They're not like our penguins, who are quite fussy, although penguins will sometimes also eat things like squid. But they certainly eat more squid on this side, and they eat more fish towards PE. So there is definitely a difference in diet. But thank you very much for that question yesterday. It was very interesting for me to go and actually look at that pie chart again. And of course, we also get seals that eat penguins, and we did speak about that. You can see these penguins don't have that worry today. They all seem very relaxed, sitting on their little island. The cattle egret is perched, the little egret, not the cattle egret, is perched just above them. I think that little egret is hoping that there might be some snacks in the water soon.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruan Grobler. I'm from Lion Sands Game Reserve, and being nominated for the Safari Guide of the Year came as somewhat of a surprise to me. I was very excited and quite nervous as well in the beginning to tackle this task, but it's quite a prestigious event, and it means that you are recognized, and I'm quite happy to be recognized. It means quite a lot to me.
Are you a fan of the Djuma clan? If the answer to this is yes, then you are cordially invited to our Hyena Hullabaloo starting on the 13th of June. During this week, we want to take a trip down memory lane. Please send in your favorite Djuma clan moments to hyena@wildearth.tv by the 7th of June, and we will dig into our archives and try our hardest to play it out during this week of hyena celebrations.
So I want us to go have a closer look at that juvenile penguin, because you can see he's nice and chubby. So before these penguins go out to molt, or before they start their molt rather, they will spend weeks out at sea fattening up. Moonbeam Smith, you are very funny, you make me laugh all the time, and you're asking if we have any vicious fish in the area. I'm trying to think of any fish that I've had a clipfish actually like nip at my finger, but the clipfish and I were looking at each other, so I wouldn't describe that necessarily as vicious, but certainly interesting. I haven't had any experiences in these kelp forests. It's not to say that it's impossible. So what I'm going to do, Moonbeam Smith, is that I'm actually going to ask my diving friends if they've ever had an experience with any of the fish here, and I will let you know. I know up the coast in Sudwana Bay, I don't know if it's a grunter. There's one particular type of fish up there that does tend to pick fights with divers at times. And then you get, in tropical waters, you get the batfish that don't necessarily pick a fight, but batfish do follow you around. And at times it has felt a bit disconcerting to me. I'm trying to think of something. I find the red Romans are sometimes a bit curious, but I've never been followed by a Roman. The seals will sometimes come and play with you in the water, but I can't think of any fish in particular. So I'm going to ask my diving friends that have been diving a lot longer than I have in these Cape waters, and I will get back to you on that. But clipfish I find very, sometimes very curious, often very shy, but I once had one clipfish just go and nibble at my finger because I was holding onto the rock because of the surge, and I was looking at something else and I noticed this thing by my finger, and it didn't bite me, but it certainly did just have a look to see what my fingers were. We've got a penguin who's strutting extremely confidently out the water. So we've got a nice little group of penguins here. One's cleaning his chest, others just arrived back from his swim. And I wanted to speak about Jacques Cousteau. So Jacques Cousteau very famously did The Silent World. Jono, so that's a really good question. So clipfish do, and in South Africa I think we've got about 30 species of clipfish, and I was reading quite a lot about them at one stage, and apparently there was a species of clipfish here in Betty's Bay that was kind of seen once or twice and never again. So it's likely that it is around, it might be its own species, but I will admit that you don't get very many recreational divers in this area. So in Cape Town we have a diving culture. In Gansbaai, me and a lot of my friends were snorkelers, so we were jumping in quite a lot. We've got some trouble on the seashore here. Everybody is suddenly very tense. But clipfish live in between the tidal pools. They live in between the rocks. Sometimes you'll see a clipfish laying on kelp in the water. So they'll just be relaxing on a kelp front. But predominantly they are living in between the rocks. And the giant clipfish, or the king clipfish, actually hunts in association with octopus. So sometimes you'll see this clipfish who's sitting out and about, and he's very visible. And if you have a look around, sometimes you'll actually find an octopus with them, which is super cool, because what happens is that the octopus scares everything, and then the clipfish will go in and see what food it can get once the octopus has given everything else a fright. Thank you very much for that question on where clipfish live. But I was talking about Jacques Cousteau and the documentaries that he did.
Long misunderstood as dim-witted, gluttonous scavengers, the hyena over the years has had a serious PR crisis on its paws. Here at WildEarth, our beloved Djuma clan has allowed us a chance to set the record straight.
We're sitting here with the Djuma clan.
So now it's time to honor this critical animal and join our hyena hullabaloo. Trishana Naidu, a self-confessed hyena lover, will be leading the celebrations, culminating in a chance to name Ribbon's new cubs.
So Jason and I are out here filming, and of course you guys know that we are here every single day. And the film work and the way that we film now when it comes to working with animals is very different to some of the things that were done back in the day. So people have realized that there's certain things that we were doing that weren't so ethical, and within these industries there's been a lot of change and a lot of conversation about rectifying how do we ethically watch animals, how do we make sure that when we're filming animals we're doing it in such a way where we're not actually disturbing their behavior, we're not making the animals uncomfortable. Oh, we have a baby Cape Cormorant, well not that small, but it's a small cormorant, Cape Cormorant, in the water here. He does have his adult gular patch and he's got that beautiful blue eye. But we'll see, maybe he is looking for some fish. We'll see if he's on the move, so I don't know how much time we'll be able to spend with him. But something that I wanted to mention today is, you know, how do we make sure that when we're watching wildlife, we're doing so ethically? And it's a very nuanced thing, and people like to bring in a lot of rules and really try and make it very complicated. And I'd love to simplify it for you all today by just saying a couple of things. And one of them is that if you wouldn't do it to a person that you don't know, it's best not to do it to an animal. So when you're out in nature and you want to take a photograph or you just want to watch animals, you wouldn't go up to a stranger in public and offer them a piece of kelp. You wouldn't whistle at them to get their attention. You shouldn't really whistle at strangers. It's not so great for the stranger being whistled at. You also wouldn't go stand right next to a stranger and take a selfie with them, because they might be a little bit confused. So I think that if we apply these very same rules to animals, that allows us to spend time in nature without causing the animals too much trouble. I think that cormorant has zoomed by, so we're going to come back a little bit closer and look at our African penguins. What do you see there, Jay? Jason is looking at the little egret, who's also moved along. He's down in hideaway. Percy. So with the African penguins, the juveniles are considered adults when they molt into their adult coloration. So as long as they're sort of grey on the top and white below, they're a juvenile African penguin. And when they become an adult, they reach their adult plumage. And I'd say that's pretty much the same with all birds, is that when they get their adult colours, then they're considered an adult bird. In fact, most birds, the juveniles, have different coloration. And sometimes that's actually to lessen competition between juveniles and adults. So there are certain species where if they see an adult of their same species, they will attack them. And other species, they give the juveniles a little bit more leeway. I wouldn't say that's necessarily the truth with African penguins, because African penguins bully the juveniles. But it really depends on the species. But most birds will have their juvenile colours, and then they'll molt, and then they'll get their very distinctive adult colours, which are mostly a lot brighter. So most baby birds are grey or brown or black. And when you're a baby of any animal, you want to blend into your environment so that nothing eats you. And then as you get bigger, you kind of want to stand out because you want to attract a mate and a partner. The penguins use those black and white colours to hunt under the water, to scare the fish.
My name is Solomon Lovu. I am working at Singita Kruger National Park. I am very excited today to be one of the guys that have been nominated or selected to participate in the Safari Guide of the Year. I'm an activator. I like starting something, motivating others to become better. I am positive. I like to focus on the positive sides of the situation.
7 of our favourite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Heart's cub, adventurous and brave, and daughter to one of our most loved mothers. Is her name Moya, meaning wind or soul, for that adventurous side? Is it Shiluva, meaning flower, for her growth? Or is it Mbilo, meaning heart, as Heart's daughter with a heart on her side? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
So I'm just having a look. I think in line with Horston Mountain, we might have a couple of albatross. So I'm just going to ask Jay to zoom in there, just below that Horston Mountain. It is super far, and albatross are known for their gliding, so I'm not sure we will get a view. As I've pointed it out, it looks like they have all but disappeared. Oh, there's the albatross. Do you see him there, Jay? Or not yet? So we're just going to keep our eyes on the sea, and we did that a lot yesterday, and we were rewarded with some humpback whales, which was very special. So the albatross, if you just pan on the horizon, a little bit of a lookout to see if we can spot it. We're not going to spend too much time because the albatross is very far away. But when the wind picks up like this, it's quite a good wind to see these pelagic seabirds. And you can see on that horizon, it's getting super hazy. And it almost looks like a mirage, which is very indicative of the storm that's coming in. So it looks like we're not going to be able to get that for you, so we're going to come back to the penguins. I do hope to show you an albatross in our winter months. Darkmane lover, I love your questions. That's a really good one, and you're asking about what causes whales and other oceanic animals to beach themselves. The first thing I want to say is that most animals, when they beach themselves, are sick. There's something wrong. So often our first reaction when we see a beached animal is we want to help them, we want to put them in the water. In all the years that I've lived by the sea and been involved with strandings, I've actually personally never seen a stranding that ended with the animal being back in the water and alive. So with whales and dolphins, it's often very inconclusive. So every stranding I've ever attended, they haven't been able to conclude exactly what happened. With dolphins in particular, so dolphins use echolocation, and if they become confused or if there is sonar testing in the area, it's believed that sonar testing can impact the whales. It confuses them, and then it can actually cause them to get what we call the bends, which is something that happens in scuba diving. So these whales and dolphins know not to rise too quickly. They know how to rise to avoid getting nitrogen buildup in their body. But if they are confused, they might rise in such a way where they get this nitrogen buildup, which is very bad. It can burst their eardrums. Not the nitrogen buildup, but if you ascend too quickly, it's not... Sorry, am I thinking about that right? You should never ascend too quickly. I think it's descending is the issue with your ears, sorry. But they do find that a lot of your whales and dolphins who do strand have burst eardrums. So that's one of the things with toothed whales that use sonar, is that can be a reason for stranding. Sometimes the animals just get it wrong. So sometimes they'll go into a shallow area and then the tide goes out. There's certain areas in the world, particularly around New Zealand, where they've got these big tidal plains, and they are known for mass strandings. In South Africa, it's very rare for us to have a mass stranding here. I've actually seen one, but a mass stranding is, we had 3 dead dolphins, and that's considered a mass stranding. So it's typically only one animal. So yeah, often it's them getting it wrong. It could be sonar. It could be that the animal is just sick, and they are not strong enough to be able to carry on, and they end up on the beach. And it's very difficult for us to tell why these things happen. It is awful when they happen. But
the Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose.
So Darkmane Lover, just to finish your question, so I did whales and dolphins. With sharks, it's often if they are sick, if something's wrong, or maybe if something has eaten them, like an orca. And turtles, so often we have our baby turtles strand, and it's because they are weak. Some of them have swallowed plastic. And so if you are in South Africa and you do happen to find a baby turtle, what you're going to do is you're never going to put it back in the water. The rule, in fact, with most animals is don't put them back in. So baby turtles, you put them in a dry box. An ice cream container works perfectly. You make sure that they've got airflow. And then you can either phone Ushaka or the Two Oceans Aquarium, and they have the most incredible turtle rehab that they do. So the other day I actually got to drive a turtle back, 2 turtles, 2 loggerheads, back to the aquarium. It's part of, because we work here but live in Cape Town, we're able to be part of that network. And so strandings, they can be sad, but we can learn so much from strandings. We can help things like baby turtles. And a lot of information that we have about particularly, your deep sea animals, we only get when they strand, because sea animals are almost impossible to study. And so I think it's very important that when we do find deceased animals on the beach, that we still treat them with respect. It's best to actually phone your local government, phone your local vet, depending on where you are in the world. Often by the sea, you will have boards with numbers that you can phone. And most scientists are actually willing to chat to you about what they see and what they find, and help you gain a better understanding of these animals that strand. But in every necropsy I've ever been to, only ones that have had definitive reasons as to why an animal ended up on the beach was when the great white sharks were killed by orcas. And we knew that because the sharks were missing their livers. Arctic Circle, that is a fantastic question. So which class, which grouping of animals or plants has the most endangered species? It's such a difficult one. I'm going to go have a look and see. I know in terms of birds, penguins and albatross struggle the most. I think insects, just because of the vast amount of insects that we have, I think so many of them are not classified and we actually don't know what the populations are doing, so I reckon insects would be high up there. Marine mammals, a lot of them are data deficient. Sharks are really struggling. And I'm just thinking of all the sea animals now. But what I'll do, Arctic Circle, is I'll see if I can actually find that and see which grouping has the most struggle at the moment. I think that what we'll find is that every grouping is not having the easiest time with the way that the world is changing. But that does allow us to look at things, and it also allows us to make decisions about the kind of world that we want to live in and how we can make a difference to ensure that those species are struggling less. And one of the things we can do is that when we are out in nature, when we are filming, when we are photographing, when we are watching, it's to respect the animals. It's to make sure that we're not putting more pressure. Stress is very dangerous, not only to humans, but to animals. So giving animals their space is super important, not impacting their behavior. So I will admit, when I was younger, one of the things we used to do if we went to Kruger is we would do the call of the pearl-spotted owl to see if we could see other birds. And these days, I'm an adult, I would never do that because I know that it's not right to influence animal behavior so that I can see the things that I want to see. And that ties into what I really want to say about Jacques Cousteau, is that I think we can appreciate when somebody's done good work. I think we can appreciate that at a different time things were more acceptable, and we can also appreciate that things are different now and that we should be striving towards living a more ethical life and living in a more ethical society. And so part of that is making sure that when you're out in nature, you're going to wait for that perfect sighting. You can't force it. You can't get the animals to look at you if they don't want to look at you. Trying to get closer to an animal will often just make them nervous.
7 of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Corky's cub, the boldest and proudest of the group. Is their name Koa, showing boldness, fearlessness, and bravery? Is it Kalula, as the energetic and speedy one? Or is it Zunani, the leader? Head over to our website to cast your vote. 7 of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Ntima's first cub, and they're turning out to be quite the handful. Is their name Loki, after the Norse god of mischief and trickery? Is it Hlongavi, the one who can't be tamed? Or is it Shihleko, full of giggles? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
So what I try to do every day when I'm out in nature is I try not to have very high expectations. I try to just go out and see what happens and see where the day takes us. I do wake up every single day of my life hoping to see whales. But I never put too much pressure on a boat trip that I have to see this whale or this penguin, or a penguin doing this or a seal doing that. beauty of nature is that we get to watch it as it is and not necessarily try to get it to do what we want it to do. And the more time you spend in nature, the more time you find that it's amazing to watch penguins on the hunt, but it's just as calming and just as fulfilling to watch a couple of very sleepy penguins enjoy themselves on the seashore. And I think when we do have those once-in-a-lifetime sightings, we're often so much more grateful for them when we've spent hundreds of hours hoping to see something. And that is really the only way to see the things that we want to see. The more time we spend out here, the luckier we get. Thank you, Danny. You've made me a bit shy. I think it's hard not to be passionate about nature. I think it is, to me, just so spectacular. And the more you learn and the more you see and the more time you spend outside, the more you fall in love with it. Like, you don't think you can. You never think that you can love something more than you already love it. And then something happens and you just get this feeling and you realize that you've fallen even more in love with wildlife than what you thought possible. And sometimes the loves sneak up on you. There's certain animals that you'd never think would have a special place in your heart, and then you don't see them for a while. I feel like that about great white sharks. I never thought that I'd care very much about them. Bella, beautiful question. Are all sharks dangerous? And the answer is very few sharks are actually dangerous to human beings. So in the world, we have over 300 different species of sharks, and the main sharks that we're having interactions with are great white sharks, tiger sharks, bull sharks, occasionally an oceanic whitetip, and then there's a couple of other accidents every year. But if you look at it, you're more likely to be killed by a faulty connection in your house than you are by a shark. And where sharks kill at most 5 people a year, it's usually only 1 or 2. We are killing quite literally millions of sharks every single year. And if you take the right precautions, there's whales. I thought there was whales. So the whales are far out. So we're just going to see, I'm going to see if I can see them again, and then I'll send Jason there. It's right by the edge. Did you see right there by the end of the land? Just go zoom in right to the end of the land. There was a whale there. And it's a low blow, so it's either southern right or humpy, I think. So we're just going to have a look at the water, see if that whale blows again. So if you take the right precautions, it's actually very unlikely that you will have a bad interaction with sharks. There's the blow. And sharks, I think, have the worst reputation of any animals on the planet. But I do want to say, I have friends who've free-dived with great white sharks, and great whites, they're the ones, oh, there's the blow, there's the whale. I think that's a southern right whale, just because that's a very low blow. And the whale looks like it's coming towards us, so we're just going to keep our eyes there. So the great white shark is the shark that was in Jaws. It's the shark that had that really bad reputation. But most of the time when sharks are interacting with us, they are curious about us. So if you look at human beings, we are not good shark food. We're not actually good enough for sharks to want to enjoy, because we are not nearly as fatty and as oily as what a shark would like. Oh, there's the whales. And so often when sharks are interacting with us, they are doing it because they're curious. So great white sharks will play with anything at the surface. They'll pick up kelp, they play with buckets. There's the blow. I'm very convinced these are right whales just because those blows are so low. I haven't seen a dorsal fin. And they're moving very slowly, which is very indicative of right whale behavior. There's the blow. Oh no, there's a fin. Humpbacks. Tail, tail, tail.
Seven of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Ntima's second born, and dare we say golden child, full of fun? Is their name Kira, the beam of light? Is it Kemba, meaning faithful in Norse? Or is it Mikateko, the blessed one? Head over to our website to cast your vote. 7 of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Ribbon's second born, with nicked ears and a softer heart full of adventure. Is their name Rangani, the adventurer? Is it Twela, the sensitive and empathetic one? Or is it Spirit, for that spirited soul we love so much? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
So for the second day in the row, we've had humpback whales. So I thought it was southern rights because they were blowing very low, but we just got to see the back and we got to see the tail of 2 of the whales. And when you see the tail of these whales, it means they're taking a deeper dive. They can stay down for up to half an hour. So I don't know if we're going to spend too much time watching. I think what I'd rather do is have a look on the shoreline, and then when they come up, I'll see the blows again. So cool to have humpbacks 2 days in a row. And very interesting to me that they're traveling on this channel and traveling on this line. There is apparently a drop down to 50 meters there. But I'm so curious to see as the season progresses, as we're here sort of every day, is this part of their highway? Ilana, there's nothing I love more than a whale question. You're asking if whales only arrive in June and July, and the answer is that whales actually can be seen along the South African coast throughout the year. So the Brutus whales stay along the coast throughout the year. They follow the fish up and down. On the west coast, all the way into Simonstown, not in Simonstown itself, but off Cape Point. In the summer months, we have feeding humpback whales that eat copepods, and we actually have these super groups of up to 100 humpback whales that you can see in the summer months. It's epic, it's mind-blowing, it's incredible. And so they'll just feed, you can actually see them from shore, so you can sometimes see them off Llandudno in Cape Town. St. Helena Bay is a very good place to actually see the humpback whales if they're close to shore. But if you're looking for our traditional whale season, I'm doing inverted commas with my hands. Traditional whale season is from June until December, although December's a bit late now with the changes in the world. And so in June, you are going to see your humpback whales start migrating up towards Mozambique and Madagascar. And then our southern right whales are all heading to De Hoop at the moment, because that is the main area of birthing, De Hoop and St. Sebastian Bay, the main area of birthing for our southern right whales along the South African coastline. So this is the start of the migratory whale season. But I've seen southern right whales in February and March in Gansbaai. I've seen the humpback whales at the same time. So they have a general season and general movements. But I said on the show yesterday, I think, it's why I love whales. Whales do whatever they would like. We like to write the books, the whales don't like to read them. So every single day you look at the sea, every single day you go out to sea, you stand the chance of seeing anything. It's an open system. Anything could show up. It's why I do it. I get goosebumps talking about it, because you'll think there's no chance, but there's always a chance. There's a chance that you might see a turtle. I've never seen one on the coast, but further off, you could see turtles in these waters. These waters are not known for flying fish, but I've seen flying fish a couple of times. But we do have our general whale season, which is June's very good for humpbacks, July, August very good for humpbacks. Peak season of southern rights is August, September, October. Into November. If you really want to see humpbacks, I would say July is a good time. If you really want to see southern rights, September, October would be your best bet. for those species. And Brutus whales, I would say March is a good time because of the sardines from my experience. And are we still looking at the sea? Are we? Beamer Smith, so yes there is. So in South Africa, whale watching is what we call a permitted system. So you can't just go out whale watching. It's illegal to approach whales within 300 meters if you don't have a permit. But in South Africa we have several permit operators, and what they try to do is they try to have only one permit an area. Some areas have more permits. I think the most that I can think of is 3 permits in Hermanus. And so every whale watch in the country has to follow the rules set out by the governing body, and I think that it's a very good thing. And I think that South Africa's done a good job of putting in whale watching regulations. And I am very, very much in favor of people trying whale watching with an ethical company. I think that it is one of the best experiences. There's the whale up again. One of the best experiences you will ever have in your life. It's something that I would gift everyone in the world, a chance to watch whales. And watching them from a boat is so different from watching them from land. Whales up again, 2 whales. Watching them from the air is really spectacular. I like to watch whales in any which way. Air, land, water. Every whale watch experience is different, and they're all really wonderful. So those humpbacks are not moving all that fast. There's the blow up again. You might get a bit of a tail coming up.
Seven of our favourite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Ribbon's firstborn, distinct from their sibling by their full round ears and more curious nature. Is their name Matimba, meaning strength? Is it Shongela, the defender of the weak? Or is it Wiley, the crafty and cheeky one? Head over to our website to cast your vote. 7 of our favourite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Swazi's cub, our surprise wanderer. Is their name Saga, meaning story in Icelandic? Is it Matimu, for history made? Or is it Masingita, the surprise? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
So what you're seeing is typical whale behavior. So these are whales that are traveling tail. So this is what whales do most of the time. They come up, they take a couple of breaths, they go under the water. It doesn't make sense for them to travel at the surface all the time because you've got that wind resistance. There's the blow. And I'm really hoping that albatross comes into frame. I have no scientific basis for this, but I so often find when I see whales, I see albatross, particularly humpback whales. Oh, is there 3 now? I think there might actually be 3. So what often happens with whales is that you'll find 2, and then suddenly there's another whale who's just popped up out of nowhere, because they're talking to each other, they can hear each other. So that's a bigger whale, and they get the name because they've got the hump under the dorsal fin. Joanna, so that's a super good question. You're asking how whales parent their babies, and daddy whales are not what we call very involved. So the father whales don't raise their kids, it's the mother. So what happens is that a whale will mate 1 year, It's 3 whales. They're very exciting. And then a year later, she'll return to give birth. And, oh, there's also a seal with those whales there. And then what will happen is that the mother whale will raise the baby in the calving grounds for the first few months, and they'll get them really big and fat. So baby whales can grow up to 3 centimeters a day because they're drinking hundreds of liters of fat-rich milk. And we might get a tail. No tail there. And so the idea when they're in the calving grounds, which tend to be more protected, less predators, is that they want the babies to grow as fast as possible to prepare for the migration down south. And so the babies, by the time they leave the calving grounds, can be about half the size of their mothers. And then they will travel down to the feeding grounds with their mothers. We believe that they spend less than a year together. So the babies will be taught how to feed by their moms, and then, oh, there's a flipper. So that white that you see is either a bit of a flipper or a tail that's come out. So humpbacks have white bottoms of their tails, or flippers, some of them. Others are completely black. And we actually use the tails to identify different humpback whales. And there's this citizen science app called Happy Whale, where you can upload your tails from all over the world, and they're matching the tails so they can see humpback whales, because humpback whales have the second longest migration of any whale in the world. So humpback whales can go from South Africa to Antarctica to Brazil. They go all over. Only the grey whales have a longer migration. And we know that because of these citizen science apps where whale watchers just upload the photos, and then the app has a fancy algorithm that picks up on the tail.
WildEarth's hyena hullabaloo has arrived. And just to add to the hyena hysteria, we have launched some great new merchandise. Find the latest clothing items on the WildEarth shop and proclaim yourself part of the clan with designs like, I'm a fan of the Djuma clan, I named a baby hyena, and more.
So these whales look like they've taken a deeper dive. We'll keep our eyes, there they are. Okay, there we go. So they're just behind the kelp now. So they've picked up a bit of speed. And they're supposed to be going east, but they're going west, which sometimes happens. Ooh, bit of tail. So I just want to say, I think we're actually seeing the formation of a competitive pod. I think that there might be 2 males and a female, because things are starting to look a bit frisky over there. They're blowing a bit more frequently. We're seeing bits of tails coming out. Whale's got his head out. Ooh. It's got barnacles on his little chin. So Anissa, you are asking how big the pods of humpback whales are. So I'm always cautious to use the word pod with baleen whales. Okay, the whales are I think they're gonna hang out there a bit. We'll keep watching. Because it's not technically like a pod. Humpback whales are known to have associations for years, which is something that we're still trying to document. But I've seen in a competitive pod, which is a pod of males trying to mate with a female, up to eight whales. Humpback whales have been seen in groups of up to 100 animals in the super pods. It's very normal to find these whales traveling by themselves. very normal to find 2 whales or 3 whales. But they don't have a fixed social structure that we are aware of just yet. They're a little bit more like giraffes in the sense that the groups will change depending on if a whale joins, if a whale leaves. So baleen whales, humpback whales are probably the most social of all the baleen whales, but baleen whales are more solitary than your toothed whales. So toothed whales, like dolphins, live in family groups. They've got complex family structures. Only now are we starting to look into family structure in baleen whales. And it's only really the humpbacks that are piquing our curiosity on that. Do you see what the birds are? There's penguins. I want to go and have a look at those penguins because they're coming back in. So we've got these, I think they're common terns who are following penguins, and they're actually in line with the humpback whales. It's incredible. So I think there's fish, because the penguins are porpoising, which we never see. That is so cool. I saw this the other day here, and I'm so glad we get to show it to you. Look at the porpoising penguins. They're nearly in jacuzzi. Okay, we've missed that. We only have 5 minutes left of our show, and those penguins are already by the land now. We were going to show you that lobster, but then we saw whales, and whales took the cake today. But I hope that you guys had a fantastic show. We've got a couple of unanswered questions that I will be bringing to the show tomorrow. It looks like we might have rain tomorrow and Monday, so we might be doing some show and shell. And on Tuesday, we've got a surprise for you all. So all those penguins are now hopping back onto the shoreline. But to go back to Moonbeam Smith, so I highly recommend going whale watching. I highly recommend that you do a lot of research and make sure that you're going with a company that really respects whales. Make sure that they have a whale watching permit, particularly in South Africa. And make sure respect is really at the paramount of what they do. That's very important, that we respect our whales while they are migrating and while they're raising their babies. But there's 2 things that I would want people to do in their lifetime, and that's to go whale watching and to try scuba diving. I think that those are the 2 things that bring me the greatest joy in the world, and I wish that on everyone. I wish everybody the feeling that I get when I see whales, even if they're hundreds of meters away from me, passing by us here at Betty's Bay. That was so wonderful. It's impossible to see whales and not be happy. I will say that. There's no way that you can see a whale and not feel happy afterwards. They have passed Cormorant Cove, so we're not going to get another view of them.
Here at WildEarth, we promised great monthly prizes for our explorers, and this month is no exception. If you join our club before the 10th of July, then you stand a chance to win a fabulous Safari Guide online course brought to you by Bushwise Field Guides. They specialize in accredited safari guide training with courses tailored for the African safari lodge industry. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer today and don't miss out on this life-changing opportunity.
Around and watching their shows. Jason and I had a fantastic time watching whales with you, talking about sharks, talking about what species are in trouble. We hope that you are going to join us again tomorrow on Sunday. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and let's spend our last few moments with some calm with our little African penguins.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.